Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today's the day, guys, that everybody's been waiting for. The first of my releases for Elsweyr, and this is a Necromancer light armor tank called the Cultist. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. How can you have a light armor tank and be viable? Well, the first thing you have to understand is this is a beginner's tank build, so this is a new player friendly tank build. This isn't made for a true in-game player or a person trying to get to doing like veteran content. This is made for somebody that's just getting started in the tanking space. So if you're just getting started in tanking and you're looking for a really good starter tank for the Necro, this is it. And it's actually listed that way. If you notice, it says the Cultist starter Necro tank. And then it says Elsweyr, and it says casual. So this is a casual build tank. This is for casual players. This isn't a true in-game build, but it is a nice starter tank, like I said, to get started with. So if you're looking for something to get started with, this is what I would start with. Now, you have to understand, the race, it doesn't matter. You can be any race in the game. You just want to kind of get the stats as close as possible to what this thing has to start with. Alright, so let's get started. So as you can see, this is a Dark Elf Necromancer. We have 30k Magicka, 31k health, 18k stamina. We do have a 13-14 magic recovery. Our spell damage is 1896. We do have a 42% spell critical. We have a 19,000 spell resist with a 19,000 physical resist. That is on the low side, but that's because we don't have sets available to us to help us get to those higher values and resistance and stuff. So we have to start somewhere. So moving on down, we are using Tri-Stat Food and the Lady Mudstone to give us extra max resistance. So as you can see, we have almost 4,200 extra resistances because we are using the Lady Mudstone, and we are using all divines to boost the power of that Mudstone. Alright, moving on. And it's easy to swap this into a DPS type build if you want to. Alright, moving on to the gear itself. Again, Tri-Stat Food, Tri-Pots, these are going to be the things you're going to want to use with this build. Alright, so going over the gear sets. Now you're going to see something different here. No monster set, and that's because, again, starter build. Starting with the first set, we are using the Withered Hand set. Now the reason I chose the Withered Hand set is when you are within 28 meters of an enemy you are in combat with, and the enemy dies, you heal for X amount and gain X amount of Magicka. This effect can occur every 3 seconds. When you're in trash encounters, this really helps you sustain a lot better. And when you're fighting bosses in dungeons that have adds, and those adds die, as long as you're in combat with them, you will get the resources back. So this is a really good way to help the tank sustain. So we are using the head, the shoulders, the gloves, the belt, and the boots, all of Withered Hand. Now, if you notice, I don't have a monster set again. That's because this is a starter build. This is to help you get started. The next set we're running is the Shulks set. Now, Shulks is another easy set to get, and you want to get the chest and legs of this. And I know it gives max health, spell damage, spell crit, but it's the 5th piece that you really want. It's that Minor Heroism. Minor Heroism is really good for a tank to help them maintain certain abilities, so that way they can keep their group going and stuff. So they can keep certain ultimates going and stuff like that. Not their group, their ultimates. And then the enchantments that we're using on these, we have 3 tri-stats on the helm, the chest, and the legs. And then on the smaller pieces, we do have all healthy. And this is going to give us the max amount of health plus extra Magicka stamina. Because the reason we want that extra Magicka stamina is we want that stamina for dodge rolling and breaking free. We want that extra Magicka for our ability to use all of the magic capabilities we have. Now you remember, this is a light armor build, so resistances will be low, but you're compensating with other things to make up that difference. Alright, moving on to the jewelry. Of course, we are using shulks. We do have 2 magic recoveries here, and they are healthy jewelry. All 3 of them are healthy, with 2 with magic recovery, and then 1 with spell damage. Now, I tried to think of what would be best here, and I looked at all the different options, and I really couldn't come up with anything that would be really good. And I knew I forgot something when I was making this build and everything. We're going to go here, and you guys can see for yourselves. I'm going to grab the Crusher enchant and a Weakening enchant. Where are you, Weakening enchant? There we go. So this, on the shulks, we have 2 magic recovery, 1 spell damage. You can put a block cost reduction here, but it really won't help much if you're not using full sturdy gear. So in the case of an ice staff build, it's better to put something here that's going to help you either sustain your max magicka, or it's going to help you increase your damage of your abilities. This way you can help your group do damage while you're tanking. Alright, so moving on to the weapons, we are using 2 willpower staves. Now the reason we're using 2 willpower staves is to boost our max magicka again. When you play a light armor take, it's like playing a light armor DPS character. You want as high of max magicka as you can get, but you want your health over 30k. The closer you can get it to 32k, the better. But you want to have your max magic as high as you can get it, and the reason why is because you use a lot of magic abilities in light armor. Because you're using the magic ability for your shield, you're using a magic ability for, you know, most of your spells. So you need that high magicka and that high recovery, so that way you can sustain while in combat and other things. So you do a lot of heavy attacks too, and we'll get to that in a second. But the reason I chose the willpower is with that. Now we are using 2 infused willpower staves. I'm going to go ahead and enchant this with the Crusher enchant. We're going to want that Crusher on the front bar, because we will be using the Crusher a lot. We will be using our front bar a lot. So you want that Crusher there. And on the back bar, we're going to go ahead and put a Weakening enchant. Now you can swap these around if you feel more comfortable with the Crusher on the back bar, because you do have a spell back there that's going to help keep Crusher uptime good, but you don't really necessarily need it. Alright, so we have the Crusher and we have the Weakening. And the Weakening is going to help keep the enemy damage lower for you and your group, but it really helps you sustain your survivability. So, alright. So that's it for the gear, food, stuff like that. And you want to use dual infused staves here. Okay? The traits on the jewelry, all healthy. On the gear itself, you want it all divines. Just make it all divine, get it all in divines, and this way you can use that the Lady Mundustone to give you the greater resistances. Alright, now, moving on to skills. And this is where things are going to get a little awkward for people, because we're using a variety of different abilities from different areas of the game to give us the greatest, a greater ability for survival while tanking, plus doing some other stuff. Not only to support us, but to support the group and bring things, like different things to the group dynamic. Now you got to remember, this is a non-meta build. This is a casual build. This isn't made for running in the game. This is to help you get started. First off, the thing I'm going to tell you the most is the one thing you want to do is make sure that you have all your class passives unlocked. I know you don't use a lot of these class passives, but you do want to make sure you have them unlocked for when you get further in the game and you decide to change the build into, like, from a starter build into a more advanced build. So, alright, moving on. So make sure you get all your class passives. Make sure you get all the destruction staff passives. And yes, you do want to unlock all of them. Moving on to armor, light armor, all passives. Medium armor, the top 2 and the bottom 1. Even though you're not using any medium armor because you're using 5 light, 2 heavy, go ahead and unlock these for when you have, later when you get a monster set. Because when you get your monster set, you will be using a light and heavy monster set. Or a medium and heavy monster set. depending on how you build out your character once you get there. Heavy armor, top 3, and then moving on down here to the world skills, soul magic. You don't have to be a vampire with this. You can. I'm going to tell you now. So if you have the world skills for vampire, it does help, but it's not necessary. But with the soul magic, make sure you get these two. It really helps out later on. Fighter's Guild. Intimidating Presence and Banish the Wicked are really good. Banish the Wicked is going to allow you to get ultimate whenever you kill a undead, daedra, or werewolf. So if you kill it, you get 9 ultimate, and it really helps you with like more ultimate gain. Mage's Guild, all of them. Unlock every single one of these, because you are using a couple mage guild abilities, and this is just going to help you not only sustain, but it's going to help you with greater group play. So, and I'll explain why in a minute. Next up, you can use Psijic Order abilities. If you have the Psijic Order, I would suggest getting Deep Thoughts. This skill is really good to have unlocked for certain situations, not all situations. Moving on to Undaunted. Undaunted is what you have to unlock this through doing dungeons. Now, you're going to be running dungeons on normal a lot. And if you can run all the base game dungeons on normal, you can unlock all of your Undaunted. So you can go all the way to rank 9, which is what you need to max out your Undaunted. 10 is just a bonus. And I think it gives you some title or something. But the reason you want to unlock Undaunted is Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. Moving on to Alliance War skills. Now, if you don't have this unlocked and you don't know how to unlock it, this is a PvP skill line. You have to unlock it from doing either Battlegrounds or Cyrodiil PvP. And you can do this pretty easy. It doesn't take too long, but the main skill you want to unlock from here is Warhorn. And then you want to morph it into Aggressive Warhorn. And this is what you're going to have on your back bar. And we'll get to that in a minute. Make sure you unlock all your racial passives, no matter what race you're playing, always unlock them. And then moving on to crafting, Alchemy. If you can have this maxed out by the time you get to 50, try to do that, because you really want to get this medicinal use. This is going to allow your potions to last, have a longer or a shorter cooldown, but have longer lasting effects. So this way you get greater amount of use out of the potion at the same time of making it to where you can like reactivate the potion shortly after the time wears out. And then moving on to provisioning, Gourmand and Connoisseur. These are very important, because depending on what kind of food you're using, if you're using blue food and you don't have access to purple food yet, this will help you extend that 1 hour duration past an hour to an hour and 20 minutes. And then it helps with purple food lasting 2 hours and 20 minutes. And then if you have gold food, it makes it last longer. Alright, so let's go over the skills on the bar. Now, a lot of people don't know a lot about the Necromancer, so I'm going to go over all the skills on the bar and explain why they're there. So starting with the first skill we have on the front bar, we do have Hungry Scythe. Now, the reason I use Hungry Scythe is because when you slice into your enemy's life force, dealing 5,036 magic damage, you heal for 4,712 for the first enemy hit, and an additional 1,570 for each additional enemy hit, up to 5 times. After dealing damage, you heal for 690 every second for 5 seconds. This portion of the ability scales off your max health. So that's why we want to make our max health around 32,000, is this way we get a greater benefit from it. The higher your health pool, the greater the benefit. Now, this is a magic ability. You do not want to spam this. You will be using this when your health drops. So you just use it every once in a while. You're not going to be spamming this. The next ability we have on our bar is Unnerving Boneyard. Now, this is from the damage class line in the Necromancer, the Gravelord, but it's what it does that's the reason why you're using it. Because, see, it does desecrate the ground at the target location, dealing 20,548 frost damage over 10 seconds. It also applies Major Breach and Major Fracture, which reduces enemies' spell and physical resistance by 5,280. You want to keep this up every 10 seconds. That means you want to keep this constantly on the ground. Whenever it wears off, try and get it back up. You don't want this falling off because you want to give your group that greater spell and physical pin. So this way you can keep your DPS at a higher level. Now, if you do have somebody in your group running this, then what I would suggest doing is swapping it out for the Bone Tyrant ability, Bone Totem. And the morph I would go with from this is the Remote Totem. Is that one? No. It is Agony Totem. That's right. The Agony Totem is one I'd be using because this will give your group minor protection to allies for 8 seconds, reducing damage taken by 8%. After 2 seconds, the totem instills fear on the enemies, which will lock them in place, which is really great. So it's a really good CC. But I like using the bone totem, the bone thing, because it does do that, or the boneyard thing, because it does do that minor breach, or major breach, major fracture. Next ability we have on our bar is Dampen Magic. Now this is a light armor skill. And as you can see, surround yourself with a net of magic negation, gaining a damage shield that absorbs 12,214 damage for 6 seconds. Damage shield strength cap at 50% of your max health, and then each piece of light armor worn increases the amount of the damage absorbed by 6%. So if I cast this, you're going to see I get a pretty big shield. It's a 15k shield. That's half my health, because it gives me a shield for 50% of my max health. So I get a 15k shield that lasts for 6 seconds. So it's a very powerful shield, and it's very good for mitigating damage. The next ability we have on the bar is Degeneration. Now Degeneration, we have this here not because it gives us major sorcery, but because bind an enemy with chaotic magic, dealing 7,272 magic damage over 14 seconds, and healing you for 1560 health, and additional 1560 health over 6 seconds. While active, your light and heavy attacks have a 15% chance to heal you for 126% of the damage caused. So what this means is, if I hit this enemy with that, you're going to see it shows it on there. But if I do a heavy attack or a light attack, I have a chance for Degeneration to not only do damage, but also to heal me with it. So it's a 15% chance of any time I deal a light or heavy attack. Now the thing you have to understand, playing an Ice Staff tank, using a heavy attack is also going to give you a shield, but it's also going to taunt the enemy. And it's the only weapon you can use that you can spam taunt with. Any other taunt that you use with any other ability, if you hit the enemy too many times with it, the taunt just doesn't work. With the Ice Staff, it continues to work because of the way it's designed, the design of the weapon. Alright, so that is what we have here, Degeneration. Now the next ability we have is to help boost our max magicka, and that is Inner Light. This is going to increase our max magicka by 5%. It's also going to give us major prophecy, increasing our spell critical. We don't really worry about spell crit, we're worried about that max magicka pool again. Moving on to the next ability we have, and this is our first ultimate. We have Ravenous Goliath. Now Ravenous Goliath it's not a hard ability to use. It's a very powerful ability, but what it does is while you're transformed, your light attacks restore health, and your fully charged heavy attacks restore health. And one does 690, one does 1727, and then you deal 2,074 damage to nearby enemies every second and heal for that amount. This ability scales off your max health. So as you can see, you turn into a Bone Goliath that gives you 30,000 extra health, and you heal for 30,000 health. And then pretty much everything you do heals you. So your health will never drop really a lot, and it's a really good ultimate to have for that survivability. And it's pretty much here for those oh crap moments. Moving on to the back bar. On the back bar, we do have a ranged taunt from the Undaunted skill line called Inner Rage. That is the first skill we have. Now this is a magic damage taunt. Does a small amount of magic damage, but it taunts the enemy for 15 seconds. You really don't need this once you get comfortable with Ice Staff. But if you do feel like you need it, so you need that greater, faster casting taunt, this is a great ability to have on the back bar. And then the next ability we have is Blockade of Frost. And the reason we have Blockade of Frost is to keep up our weakening enchant on our enemies. When we do this, if you watch, see the weakening enchants on there, and if the time runs out, It's the gold triangular thing. When it runs out, it'll recast itself because it'll stay up as long as you have this up. It'll keep it applied. This will help reduce the incoming damage you take. The next ability we have on our bar, excuse me, I didn't mean to do that. But the next ability we have on our bar is Ghostly Embrace. Now this is an amazing ability the Necromancer has. Summon 3 patches of skeletal claws from the ground in front of you, snaring your enemies by 50% for 5 seconds and inflicting minor maim for 5 seconds, reducing their damage done by 15%. Each patch can immobilize 1 enemy for 4 seconds. So when you cast this, if I'm right here and that enemy is there and I cast it, see how the second patch hits him? That second patch will immobilize him and reduce his movement speed. And then it applies minor maim. So this you want to keep up quite a bit. You don't want to spam it, but you do want to keep it up to keep that minor maim on enemies. So this way it reduces incoming damage for you and still gives you that greater chance of survivability in light armor. Because you don't have high resistances, you have to use shields and you have to use other things to mitigate damage, and this is going to help you mitigate that damage a little better. That minor maim. The next ability we have on our bar is Beckoning Armor. Now this is a really cool ability. Wrap yourself in hardened bone, granting you major resolve and major ward, increasing your spell and physical resist by 5,280 for 20 seconds. While active, enemies that strike you with ranged attacks will be pulled to you or towards you once every 3 seconds. So if you're in a dungeon and there's a lot of ranged enemies and you have this up, this is going to start pulling them in one at a time every 3 seconds. So eventually you can have all the enemies right on top of you. And it's just like I call it the free chains ability, because that's pretty much what it is. It's a free chains ability. It's really good and it works out really well. Now it doesn't work on every enemy, because it doesn't work on bosses and it doesn't work on elite mobs. If you don't know what an elite mob is, it's basically any very large mob that has a lot of health. It won't work on. And then again, we have Inner Light here to give us that increased max magicka. And then the last ability we have is Aggressive Warhorn. Now, if you don't have Aggressive Warhorn, you can use the class ability in the Living Death called Reanimate. And you can use the one that reanimates 3 allies at that location and gives you 5,000 magicka, health, stamina, whatever it is. You can use that. It's a very powerful ability if you don't have Warhorn. And that is it for the skills, guys. We're going to go over CP here. Now, and you can see I just set up the CP a minute ago. I was kind of rushing this. But I have tested this build. I played it during the first 2 weeks and played around with it a lot. I had a lot of fun with it. It's a really powerful build to get started with, like I said. And yeah, you can even tank the dragons in Elsweyr with it. Starting with the red CP, we have 56 in an Ironclad. This is going to help reduce your direct damage taken by direct damage attacks by 20%. I will have a CP video coming out here soon, guys, showing how you can use CP for lower rank CP and how to place it. The next one we have is 10 into Spell Shield. This is going to increase our spell resist by 1,003. Moving over here, we have 31 into Thick Skin. This is going to reduce damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. And then we have 28 into Light Armor Focus, increasing our physical resist by 2,542. Remember, we're not using sets or anything that can give us extra resistances because we haven't earned a lot of those yet. So this allows us to do just that. It allows us to play, do the content, and allows us to build out our character to get greater resistances. If you don't have the CP, don't worry, because you're still going to be good enough to do the dungeons on normal to help you get started, and then you can move into this kind of build to where you can get into veteran dungeons and earn the monster sets and other gear to help you get even further. The next ability CP is Hardy, and this reduces damage from physical poison disease damage by 10% with 43 points. We have 43 in Elemental Defender, reducing damage taken from Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 10%. Moving on to the final part of the red tree, we have 40 into Bastion, increasing the effectiveness of our damage shields by 16%. This isn't to improve the damage shield from the dampened armor. This is to improve the damage shield from our ice staff. Next up, we have quick recovery. This increases healing received by 5%. Moving over here, we have 40 into Warlord. This reduces break free cost by 16%. We have 16 into Sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 10%. 16 into Bashing Focus, reducing bash cost by 10%. And then moving on over here, we have 43 into Arcanist. This is going to increase our magic recovery by 10%. We have 75 into Tenacity. This increases our magic and stamina return, our fully charged heavy attacks by 14%. Now, the reason I have 75 here and not into recovery is because we are a tank. We use a lot of heavy attacks to return resources. We can't just rely on resource return through recovery. So using heavy attacks to get resources back really helps us build our resources back quicker. Moving on over here, we have 40 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 16%, and 40 into Shadow Ward, reducing our block costs by 16%. Moving on to the blue tree. Now, people are going to say, this is a DPS setup. Well, yeah, guess what? I want it to do some damage. Well, that's what I'm doing. 43 into Bless. This increases your healing done by 10%. 56 into Elemental Expert, increasing your Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 12%. 56 into Elfborn, increasing your critical damage and critical healing done by 20%. And then moving on over here, we have 35 into Staff Expert. This increases our light and heavy attack damage with Destruction Staffs by 20%. And 40 into Master at Arms, increasing our direct damage by 16%. We do have 40 points into Thaumaturge. This is just to kind of help out with our damage over time abilities a little bit. So we have 16% here. And that is the CP, guys. Now, a lot of people always ask me, how do you know these builds can do what you say? How can you tell that they work in both normal and veteran content? Well, that's because I test them. I test them in different environments. I test them in different situations. So for this one, I'm going to go into the Sunspire trial, which is a trial, and we are just going to go in there under normal circumstances. Not under veteran, just normal, to show you that this is a casual build, and it can work for doing normal content. Now, a trial is much harder than a dungeon. Much, much harder. Now, if I can survive this encounter in the beginning with this build, that means in a dungeon it's going to be a lot easier. No offense, it just will be. Because dungeons are, and this is the latest trial, so this thing is, it's made for very experienced players. It's not that bad. It's bad, but it's not super bad. It's actually quite fun. I actually like this dungeon or trial. So the thing you have to understand is a tank's job is to mitigate damage, keep enemies off their allies, and to stay alive. That's pretty much it. I mean, you can't get any more simpler than that. And that's the other reason why I keep Inner Light on the bar, is this way you don't have to rely on as many abilities. You don't have to sit there and try and figure out, 10 abilities. You're only dealing with 8 mostly. So now you got to remember, this is normal. So you can see how here I'm just tanking. And I'm just using abilities to pretty much just help me fight these guys. That's it. Just to help me and my group. And you got to remember, in a 12-man group, I'm going to have more people in here with me. So it's not just going to be me in here. I'm going to have other people in here, offering me different resources and different things to help me out. So I'm going to go ahead and use a potion now, because otherwise I'm going to die. But you can see, like, I can kill these things. I can stay in here the whole time and kill every single one of these things. Not because I'm super powerful and I'm the best player. It's because it's tanking. Tanking's not complicated. It's just doing your job and making sure that everything is good. So that's the sucker I need to kill. And like I said, when you're in a group, things are a lot different. So you're not going to be as weak. Try and get this guy killed, because when the healers are dead, everything just melts. Now, a lot of people will be like, yeah, but this doesn't prove anything. It just shows that that you can do it. It doesn't mean that you're capable of being the best at it. So, wow, I almost died there. Look at that. Back to full health and everything. That's right. I'm tanking you guys. In light armor. I'm doing that. And you, like I said, it's mostly the thing you have to understand about tanking with Ice Staff is it's a lot of heavy attacking. It is just a lot of heavy attacking. And you want to keep that heavy attack going because it's how you're going to stay alive. Not only will it help you stay alive, but it also keeps the enemies off your allies kind of thing, like it says, so... Now this is, like I said, this is a starter build, so if you're looking to get started in tanking, this is going to give you that ability to do so and to be effective. You're not going to be the best tank in the world, you're not going to be the greatest tank in the world, you're just going to be able to start tanking. So, but I'm not going to sit here and keep fighting these guys to show you that I can actually kill them, because you got to remember, I'm doing this as one person. So, go ahead and let them kill me. But this is the start of my Necromancer builds, guys. This is the Cultist tank. I hope you guys like it. If you do, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in-game. Bye.